On October 4th, 1582, the Catholic world went to bed on a Thursday. The next morning, it was Friday, October 15th. 10 calendar dates had been erased by decree, not lost in war, not erased by disaster, removed by order of Pope Gregory XIII in a document called Inter Gravissimas. October 5th through October 14th were struck from the civil record. In the Reformed calendar, no new official document would be dated with them. They were omitted, as though they had never been part of the year. You are still living inside that decision. Every date on your phone, every contract you have ever signed, every birthday you have ever celebrated, all of it flows from a document written in a room in the Vatican 444 years ago. The calendar on your screen is not a discovery. It is a decree. This is not a theory. It is a paper trail. I came to this while researching something else entirely. I was looking into the standardization of weights and measures during the French Revolution. How 250,000 local units of measurement were erased in a single decree. While pulling that thread, I realized the calendar was not an isolated reform. The same pattern had already played out 2 centuries earlier, not with inches and pounds, with days. And I found a reference to something else the same papal commission had standardized, something I was not expecting. That is a different video, but the pattern is identical. The official reason for the 1582 reform is almost disappointingly rational. The Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC, was slightly too long. Over 16 centuries, it had drifted 10 full days. By 1582, the spring equinox was falling on March 11th instead of March 21st. Easter was drifting into the wrong season. The Pope appointed a commission to fix it, and the technical proposal came from a man whose name almost nobody knows. Luigi Lilio was a physician and astronomer from Calabria. He designed the calendar the entire world now uses. He died in 1576, 6 years before his calendar was adopted. His original manuscript has been lost. We know his work only through a summary document circulated to the Commission in 1577. The man who redesigned human time left no surviving papers. A lunar crater and an asteroid are named after him. His manuscript is not. The Commission's solution was simple. Remove the 10 days. Then fix the leap year rule so it would never drift again. That is why the year 2000 was a leap year, but 1900 was not. The calendar was fixed. Or was it? The decree was issued on February 24th, 1582. It took effect on October 15th. 4 Catholic countries adopted it immediately: Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Poland. France followed in December. And then, for reasons that had nothing to do with astronomy, it stopped. Completely. Protestant Europe refused. Not because the astronomy was wrong. The astronomy was demonstrably correct. They refused because the decree came from the Pope. A Lutheran astronomer named Michael Maestlin called it an attempt to extend papal authority over time itself. Think about that phrase. Not authority over territory, not authority over law, authority over time. The science was right, and the source was unacceptable. This is not an anti-science position. This is an anti-authority position. and it lasted longer than most wars. The Protestant states of Germany did not adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1700. 118 years of living on a different date than your Catholic neighbor. 118 years where crossing a border meant arriving in a different week. Letters arrived on dates that did not exist in the recipient's calendar. Trade contracts required double dating. A merchant in Hamburg and a merchant in Munich might agree on a delivery date and mean completely different days. England held out until 1752. 170 years. By then, the drift had grown to 11 days. The British Parliament passed the Calendar New Style Act of 1750, and on September 2, 1752, the next day became September 14th. 11 days removed from the record of that year. But the most famous part of the story may be the one that never happened. Everyone tells this story with riots. Give us back our 11 days, mobs in the streets, citizens outraged that the government had stolen time from their lives. I went looking for those riots. They do not exist. There are no contemporary newspaper accounts, no police records, no court proceedings, no parliamentary debate referencing civil unrest over the calendar change. The entire story comes from a single painting by William Hogarth, An Election Entertainment, painted in 1755. In the background of a political satire, a banner reads, "Give us our 11 days." It was a joke, a campaign slogan from the opposition party mocking the government, not a documentary record of actual violence. But the actual history is more unsettling than the myth. It does not need angry crowds. It just needs you to look at what happened to the people who lived through the gap. And that is where the reform stopped being astronomy and became law. When Britain erased those 11 days, Parliament had to legislate what happened to every contract, every lease, every payment, every birthday, every legal age in the country. If you turned 21 during the 11 days that no longer existed, were you legally an adult? Could you inherit? Could you vote? Parliament answered explicitly. No person would reach any age or any anniversary any day sooner than they would have under the old calendar. If your 21st birthday fell on September 8, 1752, you had to wait until September 19th. The state did not just change the date, it regulated the pace at which legal adulthood arrived. But here's the detail no one mentions. The British tax year had started on March 25th, Lady Day, one of the old quarter days. When 11 days were removed from the calendar, the Treasury faced a problem. A fiscal year shortened by 11 days meant 11 days of lost revenue. So the Treasury moved the start of the tax year forward to April 5th. They added the 11 days back, but only for money, not for birthdays, not for contracts, not for legal age, for taxes. That is why the United Kingdom's tax year still begins on April 5th, in 2026. 344 years after a pope in Rome decided to fix Easter. You are paying taxes on a schedule created by a calendar you did not choose, adjusted for days that do not exist, in a country that spent 170 years refusing to accept the calendar in the first place. But that is not the page that kept me up. Once I saw the adoption timeline, the story stopped looking local. It started looking like a pattern. Japan had it worst. When the Meiji government adopted the Gregorian calendar in December 1872, they announced it would take effect January 1, 1873. That left exactly 2 days in December. The entire month collapsed. The reform also had an immediate financial effect, because state salaries and monthly obligations were suddenly recalculated inside a shorter December. Russia waited until after its revolution, 13 days removed. And here is the detail that rewrites itself. The October Revolution, the event that defined 20th century geopolitics, actually happened in November by the Gregorian calendar. Even the name of the thing that changed the country was wrong from the moment it happened. Greece became the last European country to switch in 1923, Turkey in 1926, and within the Orthodox Church, the switch fractured entire communities. Old calendarist resistance, people who insisted on keeping the Julian calendar for religious observance, led to punishment, exclusion, and clashes with church and state authorities. In the 21st century, there are still Orthodox congregations that celebrate Christmas on January 7th, not December 25th. They are not behind. They are on a different calendar. The one that existed before the Pope decided to fix it. 344 years. Every single country, eventually. Not because anyone was conquered, because the alternative, living in a different week than the rest of the world, became impossible. Trade required it. Diplomacy required it. Navigation required it. And once those systems aligned, older calendars started to look local, awkward, expensive. But before I tell you what I think this means, I need to tell you what I found that I was not looking for. The man who designed the calendar, Luigi Lilio, is not the name on it. The name is Gregory, the Pope who commissioned it. The designer is a footnote. His manuscript is lost. His work survives as a committee summary. The calendar that governs every financial market, every airline schedule, every court date, every birth certificate on the planet is named after the man who ordered it, not the man who built it. And the countries that resisted, for 100, 170, 344 years, did not resist because the science was wrong. They resisted because the authority was wrong. And then every single one of them adopted it anyway. Not through conquest, through commerce. September still means 7th. It is the 9th month. October means 8th. It is the 10th month. November means 9th. December means 10th. The names have been wrong for over 2,000 years. No one fixed them. Because fixing the names was never the point. The point was making sure everyone, everywhere, wakes up on the same morning. We all do now. We have for centuries. The Gregorian calendar did not erase local time overnight. It did something more durable. It made local time secondary. Once law, trade, taxation, diplomacy, and navigation all depend on a shared date, every older system gets pushed to the margins. Not abolished, just rendered irrelevant. That is why this story is not really about 10 missing days in 1582. It is about the moment the modern world decided that time should belong to everyone in exactly the same way, and how much had to disappear for that to work. The local years, the regional feast days, the village cycles that told people when to plant and when to harvest and when to rest. Most of it no longer survives as a living civil system. Not because it was wrong, because it was local. And local does not survive standardization. Neither did the manuscript of the man who built the replacement.